Can we ever truly recover from the physical impacts of an eating disorder? And if so, how long does this recovery process take in order for our body to resume its normal biological functions? My name is Sheena, and I'm a registered dietitian that specializes in the care of persons with eating disorders. And if that's something that you're interested in, definitely click that subscribe button. I do drop new episodes every Wednesday on both eating disorder information and the recovery journey. So I want to start by saying that the body is miraculous. It performs so many miracles on a daily basis, and recovering from severe malnutrition or eating disorder behaviors is one of them. However, there are going to be many things that we are going to want to consider when we look at what to expect during the recovery process and how much of our body function can repair itself. Some of the major things that are impacted when we are experiencing an eating disorder, depending on those eating disorder behaviors, can be things like the digestive tract, the heart, the kidneys, the thyroid, the liver, and the teeth. Now, how much of this is repairable as we're recovering from an eating disorder? Well, this really depends. And I know that that answer can be really challenging for many of us. But what I do want to say is no matter where you are at, it's time to start that renourishing and the weight restoration in order to prevent any of these very long-term consequences from starvation. When we think about whether or not our body can fully physically restore from an eating disorder, several things are going to come into play. They're going to be the length of time that we have experienced that eating disorder. What types of behaviors have we had during that eating disorder and how frequently? So, for example, have we been abusing laxatives? Or have we been engaging in self-induced vomiting? These are going to really take a play in how much of the physical restoration is going to be possible during eating disorder recovery. We're also going to want to factor in the amount of weight restoration that we have been able to achieve and the person's age. All of these variables are going to come into play when it comes to reducing the long-term physical implications from an eating disorder. The organs that are often most compromised most severely by that eating disorder are going to be our bones. And this is because this is often the first thing that the body starts leaching off of in order to preserve other functions of the body. For example, if our body decides that it should negotiate sending energy to the heart over the bones, potentially compromising the integrity of bones in order to sustain our life by preserving the function of the heart, it's going to do that. Our body is going to cease menstruation, which can further exacerbate that bone mineral density depletion. Even if we are to obtain a full weight restoration and resume normal meals and snacks, energy needs for both normal daily function and physical activity, and we are no longer engaged in those eating disorder behaviors, our bone mineral density still may be compromised. So I do always recommend that individuals that have been suffering from an eating disorder do undergo a DEXA scan to see what level of compromise the eating disorder has had on that bone mineral density. This can put us at risk for things like osteopenia and osteoporosis, which can be lifelong. And this is especially true for those individuals that are suffering from an eating disorder that are women. The reason why is because women have a menstrual cycle, and if that menstrual cycle stops, that compromises that bone mineral density. We also, as a general rule of thumb, have less lean body mass compared to men, and we do less strength-bearing activity, which can compromise that bone mineral density as well. Now, this is, of course, always a catch-22 because if an individual is excessively exercising and trying to do something like build strength while they are malnourished, that is not going to preserve that lean body mass. It is actually going to exacerbate the problem even further. So it is a problem for everyone experiencing an eating disorder, but our females are at increased risk. The next thing that might be compromised long term would be we are engaging in activities that might compromise our dentition. So things like self-induced purging. This can wear away the enamel on our teeth and can cause dental caries or other dental issues. So when you are in recovery from an eating disorder, or even if you are engaged in eating disorder behaviors, it is very important that you practice good oral hygiene and see your dentist regularly to prevent long-term consequences of some of these eating disorder behaviors. The next thing that is very difficult to reverse when someone has had an eating disorder for a very long time is going to be our heart rate. We may see a slowed heart rate for somebody that is experiencing very prolonged starvation or very intense starvation, or both. And the more prolonged and the more intense, the less likely it is that we're going to restore that heart rate long term. Those are the main things when we are facing an eating disorder that may not be reversible. This is why it is so important that you seek immediate care if you are concerned that you are facing an eating disorder. A qualified healthcare team, such as a registered dietitian, therapist, and doctor, are able to help you navigate some of these concerns that could potentially turn into lifelong health consequences. That we are able to distinguish that we have an eating disorder and try to eradicate some of these eating disorder behaviors and renourish, the less likely we are to experience long-term consequences of that eating disorder. The longer we have the eating disorder, the more at risk for some of these conditions that we have. Things that will very likely be repairable during the recovery process are things like kidney function and liver function. So we'll likely see a return to normal in a lot of our digestive functioning. However, the use of laxatives and extreme laxative abuse may compromise some of our digestion long term. We really can't know for sure how each individual is going to react to refeeding and properly renourishing with cessation of all of these eating disorder behaviors. But the best bet that we can have for anyone for restoring our health after an eating disorder is to catch that eating disorder as soon as possible, weight restore as soon as possible, and work with a qualified healthcare team. By the way, I do see patients one-on-one, and I do accept most major insurance plans. If you have a major insurance plan, you are likely paying for a dietitian whether you're seeing one or not. So if you are struggling with any of these things that I've mentioned today or in other YouTube episodes, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. If you found this information helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with a friend.